Hi, friends. Today, I'm going to tell you the story of when Jesus was crucified. And I need to let you know it's going to be a sad story. But we have to go through the sorrow of this story so that we can truly experience the joy of Easter. And so I want you to think about how much Jesus must have loved you and me in order to go through the events of this story. Jesus had been released by Pilate to the soldiers, and they took a bunch of thorns and they fashioned it into a crown and they put it on Jesus' head, and they started to make fun of him, and they said, "All hail the King of the Jews." And when they had had their fun, they brought him outside to be crucified. And so they took Jesus and two other criminals and they gave them their crosses to drag outside of the city. And they saw a man on the way. His name was Simon. He was a Cyrene, and they made that man carry Jesus' cross. And they walked all the way outside of the city to a place called Skull Hill. And when they reached it, the soldiers, they nailed Jesus and the two other criminals to the crosses. And they crucified them. And at the top of Jesus' cross, there was a sign that said, "The King of the Jews." And when Jesus was up there, he said, "Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing." And there was a crowd of people who had followed him through the city, who were mourning and crying, but there were others there who were passing by who laughed and made fun of Jesus. They said, "Oi, didn't you say you could tear down the temple and in 3 days build it again? Why did you come down from that cross?" And the religious leaders also, they said, "Look at him. He saved many people, but he can't save himself. He said he was the Son of God. Where is God now? Why doesn't God save him?" And even one of the criminals who was being crucified next to him started insulting him, saying, "Some Messiah you are. Why don't you save yourself? Save us while you're at it." But the other criminal, he rebuked him, saying, "Don't you fear God? We are only getting what we deserve. But this man, he is innocent. He doesn't deserve to die this way." And he said to Jesus, "Please remember me when you come into your kingdom." And Jesus answered him, "Truly I tell you, today you will be with me in paradise." Well, by now it was about noon, and the sky became dark, and it stayed that way for 3 hours. And at about 3 p.m., Jesus cried out. He said, my God, why have you forsaken me?" And then he said, "Father, into your hands I commend my spirit." And finally he said, "It is finished." And he breathed his last. Suddenly, there was a huge earthquake, and big stones were broken into two, and the veil at the temple ripped from all the way from the top to the bottom. And one of the soldiers who was standing there below Jesus, he saw all of this, and he was afraid. He said, "Surely this man really was the Son of God." Afterward, a rich man named Joseph went to Pontius Pilate. Here's Joseph, and this is Pontius Pilate, and he asked to have Jesus' body so that he could bury him. And Pilate agreed. And so Joseph and his friend Nicodemus took Jesus down from the cross, and they wrapped his body in linen cloths, and they laid him in the tomb, a tomb that had never been used before, and they rolled a huge stone in front of it. And Pilate had guards put in front and a Roman seal put on that stone. And the women who had been following along witnessed everything. And then they went away to observe the Sabbath. And that's the end of the story for today, but it's not the end of the story. Be sure to come back tomorrow to hear the good news of the resurrection.